when you're saying you're focusing on what's next, how do you make sure that that aligns with those values that you have with family and business? How do you make sure that it does align that with that?
So what we do and what I've been doing for years now is I build a life. I don't build a business and I don't build a family. I build a life. The life is designed. What do I want? So we don't go to our kids to decide where we live. We don't ask the kids, do you want to move? We don't think it's up to them. They get to be parents later and they can make those decisions. Right now, it's us. We decide they're being homeschooled because we wanted to homeschool them. We didn't homeschool them because it was better for them. We homeschool them because I want to spend time with them. I bought a plane because I didn't buy a plane because that's an easy thing to do. I bought a plane because it made my life easier to do my life. Spending that much money on a piece of equipment is a major, major commitment that I think a lot of people, oh man, it's so cool. You got a jet. Dude, it ain't that cool. It comes with tremendous responsibility. It's a beast. It eats constantly. It depreciates in value. It takes up a lot of space. It requires tremendous amounts of fuel, and it's sitting there saying, come use me. So I'm just using that as an example. These things, they require responsibility. I think people look at people that do things like this and they're like, oh my God, it must be so good. Tremendous responsibility.
I like that you touch on responsibility because I think we often forget that. And Jocko with Extreme Ownership, the book.
Yeah, I was just talking to Jared about Jocko.
All right. So Jocko, Extreme Ownership it comes down to, hey, you know what? It's up to you. It's your responsibility to do all of these things. And I think you own up pretty well to responsibility when it comes to making sure that you're making stuff happen. What would you say, because we have entrepreneurs, solopreneurs here listening in, what would you say is the key to this responsibility idea when you think of it?
Well, I think a lot of, on the hard part is that a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs are actually trying to shuck responsibility. Whether you know it or not, you're trying to get out of responsibility by being a solopreneur. You're like, I'm going to work for myself. It's going to be easier. It's not going to be easier. If it's going to be easier, it's going to be a failure. By the way, the solopreneur, that is self-employed, is not a business. It is a job. Ooh. And if you think you're going to leave, I think a lot of people think I'm going to work for myself and it's going to be a cooler thing. If I'm going to put up with somebody, if I'm going to work for not enough money, I'm going to work for myself. It's impossible. You don't work for yourself. Nobody works for themselves. It's impossible to work for yourself. You're always working to solve somebody else's problem, to service someone, to do something for someone else. There's no such thing as working for yourself. So I think a lot of people that become self-employed entrepreneurs, this term that really didn't even exist, 5 or 6 years ago. 6, 7, 8 years ago, if you said you were an entrepreneur, that was just code for you're out of work. And so you're going to end up with more responsibility, not less. You're going to end up working more hours, not less. You're going to end up more in debt, not less. You're going to have more obligation than less when you become your own person. And if you're not going to do that, then you should stay working for someone else. You're not going to go up the food chain unless you take total control of your environment and then try to extend. The only way you get better is by extending the responsibility you take for the things around you.
Ooh, I like that. All right. So let's dive in deeper on that. Taking that responsibility of more of what's around you. How do we get there, Grant? Because a lot of people aren't even close to taking responsibility for the small thing that they have responsibility for, right?
Yeah. So just, what I did was when I was 25 years old, I was coming out of a treatment center for drug addiction. And prior to that, I was blaming everybody for everything in my life. And I came out of that treatment center and I quit blaming people. So it's been 37 years. I blame no one for anything, even the worst things that have happened to me. The haters, the critics, the lawsuits, the betrayals, the partners that let me down, the employees that stole from me, the guy that sued me, frivolous lawsuit, trying to hold me hostage, thinking that the lawyers were going to, just drain me of legal fees and I'd settle. All that. I have to take responsibility for all that. I did something to allow those people into my life. And the trick about the responsibility thing is the cool little trick is that even when I'm betrayed, if I accept responsibility, it puts me back in charge. because I can't improve things if I'm a victim. If something happened to me, I wasn't in control of it. If I had something happen, then I'm like, oh, wow, what can I do to make sure that doesn't happen again? If you do it to me, it's like, oh, well, I can't really protect myself. But if I did it, if I pulled you in some kind of way, everybody likes the law of attraction stuff because they're like, oh yeah, I can make it all happen. But then they're like, but I don't make the bad stuff happen. Okay. So what I do, whether it's true or not, I don't know if it's true or not, but it works for me, is like, I just accept responsibility for everything.
Dude, that reminds me of, and I don't know the quote, so I'm not even going to try it, but Marcus Aurelius, right, Emperor of Rome, back in around 100 AD, he mentioned something around what you just said, which is very key. You take responsibility, right? You stop being the victim, and this is the key. You find the opportunities in everything, regardless of what it is. And look, it can be bad, but what's the opportunity? And I love that, from what you said at the very beginning of this, you mentioned about looking forward to like, hey, what's next? I have a feeling that that's a big driver in what you do, so you don't stay stuck in this, I'm in a rut.